I am Jim Collison, and this is Gallup's Call to Coach, recorded on April 26th, 2024. Call to Coach is a resource for those who want to help others discover and use their strengths. We have Gallup experts and independent strengths coaches share tactics, insights, and strategies to help coaches maximize the talent of individuals, teams, and organizations around the world. If you're listening live, we'd love to have your questions in chat. You can just see those on YouTube over to the left, on LinkedIn down below. You can drop those in at any time. If you have questions after the fact, you can send us an email, coaching@gallup.com. Don't forget to subscribe to Call the Coach on your favorite podcast app or right there on YouTube so you never miss an episode. Justin Wiley is our host today. Justin is an associate principal for Gallup. His CliftonStrengths top 5 are command, activator, maximizer, communication, and achiever. And Justin, always a great day to be with you. Welcome back to Call the Coach.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Jim. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great to have you, and great. We've got some fabulous guests today, and I'm excited to hear from them. Why don't you take a second and we can get them introduced?
Yeah, that would be awesome. Well, we have an incredible client with us, the California Department of Human Resources, otherwise known as CalHR. Two great leaders we have here today. So, Nicole, if you don't mind introducing yourself, telling us a little bit about what you do, and then your top 5 strengths.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Justin. And just thank you for the opportunity to be here. I'm super excited. As Justin said, my name's Nicole Griffith, and my top strengths are strategic, self assurance, individualization, futuristic, and significance. And, I've just had the opportunity to embrace these strengths, and they really are me. I've learned over the course of the last couple years, last year, as we've been working with you, Justin, and partnering with Gallup, that strengths really are a unique set of talents that really identify people. So this is me in a nutshell, my top 5. In my day-to-day world, the things I get paid to do is I have the opportunity to lead the benefits for the state of California. We have about 20 programs in our office or our organization that we lead for about 225,000 state employees. So I get to do what I do best each day, and this is me, and happy to be here.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Nicole. Michelle, the mic is all yours. Do you mind introducing yourself?
Absolutely. Good morning to the West Coast. Good afternoon to the East Coast. Good afternoon to the middle of the country. So my name is Michelle, and I'm actually the Employee Engagement Program Manager in the Benefits Division at CalHR. My top 5 strengths are input, intellection, empathy, connectedness, and learner. And in this role, I can authentically say I get to do what I do best every day. In terms of leading engagement, employee engagement throughout the state of California and within CalHR.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Michelle. Nicole, I'm curious. We've done so much incredible work within your benefits division with CalHR and then broadly the state of California. Would you share a little bit about, what does your focus look like? You serve so many different groups, right? You have your intact teams, you have the 230 some thousand employees you just mentioned. Can you help us understand what all it is that you do?
Sure. So with the engagement, so I'm going to take us back and back to the pandemic for a minute and just share like how this evolved and how our partnership came about. But as we can remember, back during the COVID pandemic, engagement was at an all-time low. For the U.S., it was at 20%. For public and government workers, it was at 41%. And although we in government tend to be a little higher than the US average, it still was low. Over half of the government employees' engagement just was low. I had the opportunity to join CalHR back in July of 2020. I came in right in the middle of pandemic. I met people through this type of environment. And really what I noticed around me is people were in the roles of being caretaker, parent, and trying to hold down a full-time job each day. And the focus was just on making it through that day. So here in CalHR, state of California, we have our benefits of EAP, our Employee Assistance Program. We have our wellness program. We have our merit award and recognition program. But what I really noticed is we were missing engagement. engagement is a super important benefit that, I wanted to see us embrace, and there was a need at that time. So I put a concept together, pitched it to our director, who is wonderful. And really, my focus was, let's focus on holistically supporting the overall well being of the individual employee. It was approved, moved through some hurdles and jumps, and we were able to launch our program, officially launch in August of 2023. But in 2021, that's where we started to bring on employees and form the program. And that's where we were able to bring Michelle on. And I can't wait for you to hear from Michelle, because she really does bring theory to practice in her role. But just a quick summary is why it was important. We were in the pandemic. We brought together statewide engagement, where we pulled our EAP, wellness, recognition, and now engagement under one umbrella, and we thread the needle of engagement at the core through all of our programs. Through that, I'll just say, you asked, our role in CalHR is to support the state departments. We have about 153 of them. And so our role as the engagement program is to provide consultation and guidance to all these people to help them, the organizations, bring their employees to a place where they're able to thrive. So a lot of good work. And also think, CalHR is the state department, so CalHR is our employee. And then I have my team, the benefits division. There's 50 of us where we administer the programs, so they're our customer as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Nicole. That's fantastic. Michelle, I'm curious, as the statewide engagement program manager, I want to dive specifically into CalHR. Can you tell us about what problem were you looking to solve, or what were you hoping to accomplish at CalHR as a result of focusing on employee engagement?
I mean, I think so I started with CalHR March of 2023. So about a little over a year ago. And this program, as Nicole said, is brand new. It's never existed before. So I remember starting this, position, and we had the opportunity to reach out and partner with a vendor. And who better than what Nicole calls the Louis Vuitton of engagement, right? So that's how we ended up with Gallup. There's more to it than that, but Justin, you and I connected. I think you were in sunny San Diego. You were at a conference or something. You're like, yeah, we can connect and we can meet and we can talk about this. And we partnered with you. And our organization is a little, I mean, I think you could say too, like, it takes a little while to understand the nuances of how we operate, because the benefits division, which is what Nicole, is the head of, and where I work, we exist within the benefits division. But as Nicole just said, we also serve the California Department of Human Resources, which is where our division is located. So we serve them as a customer. And then we also are pushing out these programs and supporting, I don't want to say pushing out, but supporting other departments at a statewide level, right? So when we started talking, Justin, I think if you reflect on it, we started, we launched this statewide engagement program statewide to all other departments. And then we were really focused on, I don't want to say really focused, but also focused on CalHR and serving CalHR. So, we did strengths work in our division, and then we hosted engagement champions within CalHR. You were there for that. Rose was there for that. And every time you come to town, something happens. So we're in engagement champions. We're in the cohort. Our survey is going to launch. The respondent file is built. The survey is ready to launch in a few days. And then we, get an email that says, hey, you have to return to the office. Do you remember that, Justin?
Of course. How could I not?
And we had an opportunity, and I hope I'm answering your question, but we had an opportunity in that moment. It was like, hey, do we still want to launch this survey? It was our first one. It is our first one. And we had the opportunity that was like, yeah, we still want to launch this survey, and we're going to receive authentic, meaningful feedback from, those that we serve within this department. So I'm really proud of that decision, looking back on it, that we still went ahead and did that.
Nicole, I'd love to get your thought process on that, because many leaders might consider not surveying, right? We're going through a time of serious change. This type of communication to returning to a hybrid or on-site working environment can be stressful. And you decided to survey your employees and get their feedback at a very critical moment in their employee experience. Can you share a little bit about what went into making that decision, a courageous decision, to survey employees during that transition?
Sure. Kind of what you said, we were at a place where we were so excited to launch our first Q12 survey with Gallup, and we had everything ready to go. And we even were engaging in our engagement champions course. And, to be fair, so in CalHR, we had some of the areas had been in the office sporadically. Some were in full time where they never got to go home during the pandemic, and others moved to a full-time telework operation. The goal of bringing a return to office guidance or instructions that came out was really to bring some consistency through the organization. It was really important to our executive team that we had consistency, we were collaborating, we were taking advantage of that in-person time. So, as we are having our launch date for our survey, October 16th, the messaging comes out. The executive team huddles. Should we go through with the survey? And we teeter-tottered. We kind of went with no, let's pause. And then we said, no, let's go. What better time to hear and see how our employees are really feeling? And, for us on our survey, Michelle's going to know it, but I don't know it offhand. We are really committed to the work that we do. So in CalHR, that's high for us. What is that, Michelle?
Q9. My
Q9, yes.
teammates or colleagues are committed to doing quality work.
There
That's
we
what we
go.
rank the highest,
We
and
ranked the
something to be really
highest.
proud of.
Yes, yes. And where we really wanted to take advantage, Q7, my opinions count. This is how you get to a thriving organization is hearing and letting your employees have a voice and then acting on it. And so we went through with the survey. We got feedback. We also took advantage of our partnership with Gallup and moved into the culture, asked Gallup to help us with the return to office, how we were going to do this effectively and strategically. And had the opportunity to work with Andy and Ray, who were fabulous and helped us. And I think it all came together pretty well. And in January of 2024, this year, CalHR returned to the office 2 days a week in person and up to 3 days of telework.
Let me commend you for, oftentimes when we think about an engagement survey or doing any of those kinds of things and you alluded to this just a second ago, that the temptation is to wait till the situation is perfect.
Mhm,
And that's not the intent,
mhm,
right? I mean, the intent is and Nicole, you just said this, and maybe Michelle, you want to weigh in on this as well. The intent is to hear really how people are feeling right now. And
mhm.
you kind of can't wait. The goal is not to get perfect scores. The goal is to hear from people. So, Michelle, anything else that you would add as you think about that time of releasing it? Maybe like, but was it for you? Did you get the feedback that you were looking for? I mean, were you able to hear from folks? Talk a little bit about that, Michelle.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I've been saying recently to people, we're in the action planning stage right now. And with this survey, we can think about the quantitative aspect of, 1 through 5. How would you rate this? How would you rate that? And this is one of the few times I really believe that feelings are facts, right? So
Mhm.
when I meet with leaders around action planning and they're looking at the questions, it's like, hey, don't look at the mean index. You're at a 3.43 or 4.25. I don't know. I'm just making that up.
Mhm.
But this is how your team felt when they took this
Mhm.
survey. And it was a snapshot in time. It was in October. Remember, this return to office just went out. Think about how that may have impacted the way these questions were answered. But, sit with your team and do this again in April or May and see what that looks like for them. And it's also an opportunity for leaders to know, and I know Nicole had this experience, not to put you on the spot, Nicole, but maybe the way you interpret a question isn't the way that, one of
Mhm.
your team members interprets a question. So for people leaders, I think it's an opportunity to get to know their teams,
Mhm.
but also know that this is how they felt during that snapshot in time. And they may not, that may have changed, but it was vulnerable, but it's something I think we should be really proud of. It's not about
Mhm.
being perfect. It's about, getting better, because engagement for me is it's there's no there's it's not really a goal that you meet and you stop working on it. The process is the goal. It's something that we're going to continue to do. And when we take this survey again, and we hope our results are better and we're more engaged, we have to continue to do what we do well, even better than we're doing it right now.
Hmm. Yeah, that's great. I think that, Michelle, one of the things I'd love to hear you talk about is you have really good input on how people want to have conversations and people want to talk about this. You want to say a little bit more about what we've experienced in CalHR?
Yeah, I think people reach out to me. We've held office hours. That was an idea that we talked to Justin and Jenny about. We've held office hours to answer people's questions, and I think people leaders' questions. And I think one thing to name here is that CalHR is really unique. So every
Hmm.
single team is really unique. What one division is doing isn't necessarily what another division is doing because their needs may be different in the way that they serve Californians or other departments.
Hmm.
So one of the things that I've realized, and Nicole and I talk about quite often, is when people reach out with their questions, it's like, okay, I got to go into here and I need to, I got to do my action plan. And then they start to really look, they dig a little bit deeper, and I think we've seen a lot of aha moments, and
Hmm.
this work is meaningful to people
Yes.
want to have this conversation. I think even within our own division, when people start talking about it, we'll set aside a half hour, an hour, and then 2.5 hours later people are still talking about this. So giving that space to have these authentic, meaningful state of the team conversations and engage in dialogue, um, I think has been transformative for sure.
Hmm. And that's just within our division. Last week or the week before, we hosted a state leader forum for the state of California, where we had almost 200 leaders come together around just hearing about engagement, some best practices that other departments have had on return to office. And Justin had the opportunity to be with us then. And just as Justin's with us and things happen, the night before, the governor's office released a memo that instructed the state of California departments to have a return to office hybrid operation come June, the middle of June. And so Justin was there live, and we huddled and we're like, do we need to change where we're going? Is the direction of what we're going to talk about with these leaders important? Is it still on track? And at the end we said no changes. Let's do this authentically and have a conversation of what's really going on about the hybrid operations, return to office, but at the core, how engagement can have a key role in this and just bringing it and making it more front and center throughout the state of California. And through those leaders, as a result, afterwards, we stood up a web page with resources, and we've just been getting a lot of questions about how do I do this? Help me do this. What are some ideas? But them too, that showing throughout the threading the needle throughout the state of California, other departments want to be at the table and want to talk about this too. So we're doing meaningful, impactful work. And this partnership with Gallup has just been, Louis Vuitton of engagement, but really it's more authentic, it's meaningful, and it this is a journey that we're on. We're not going to get there overnight. We have so many things intact, but we just need to slow down and focus on what we have. And my strategic and futuristic, that's really challenging for me because I'm calling Justin daily saying, I have this idea. I need Rose. I need Andy. How much will it cost to do this? Um, but it's all for good intent.
Yeah, absolutely. That forum was a great opportunity, Nicole, to get leaders together to learn best practices, like you mentioned, but also to, provide some insights as it relates to what we're finding in the data around how to effectively transition to the office, right? Does on-site work? Does remote work? I'm curious from both of your perspectives, now that you've gone through this transition at CalHR, right? I'm sure many departments within the state of California are looking to you for guidance. We also have clients all over the world, specifically, especially in the US, transitioning back to maybe a hybrid working environment. Would you share some challenges that you ran into and maybe some advice for organizations who are going through this change now?
Sure. I think one of the biggest challenges we had at first was just consistency, right? Within our executive team. And when I say that, it's more of, you know, we are all individual employees of this organization, of the state of California, of CalHR. And bringing the executive team together and having conversations and letting the executive team go through their feelings of how this impacts them. um, I think that was a challenge for us because everybody was different. We all do different work. We have different focus. So some really thought, I've been thriving in this workplace of telework. Why do I need to come back? Where others were like, hey, I see this meaningful impact of being in person. So getting to a common place of consistency, that was a challenge that we had in the beginning. We held some focus groups. We had some feedback sessions. We huddled a lot and talked. And so one best piece of advice that I have is, um, start at the top. Get your executive team or your senior management team, your top leaders aligned. Because, and Justin, I know we'll jump into this, but the managers have a really high impact on how employees feel, how they thrive, how they produce, how they perform, all of that. And so if we get our leaders on one page and consistency in the line, the trickle down effect will be positive, and you'll gain a lot of momentum with that.
That's great. Michelle, from your perspective, talking to colleagues, being involved in some of these focus groups, maybe, what advice would you give maybe someone going through the transition themselves, right? We have leadership teams making these decisions. What was your perspective or what was your experience transitioning back, or had you always been operating in a hybrid work environment?
No comment. No, I'm just kidding.
That's
No
not
comment.
allowed. Not in this
No,
interview.
No, I think that's a good question. I as an individual contributor that works closely with leaders, I think that my perspective might be a little bit different. For me, doing this work as the employee engagement program manager, I believe in, doing if I'm working with you, Justin, to talk about best practices, we need to incorporate best practices. And what I mean by that is, I don't think it shouldn't be punitive coming back to the office. One of the biggest frustrations I think I see as an individual contributor with folks is you come into an office and you sit on, Microsoft Teams all day. Like, you can do that at home. So how do you really leverage that collaboration piece, that engagement piece when you are in the office? Um, you know, why would you come in the office to sit on Teams all day? For me, that hurts my ears. That's like a lot of headphones. Um, that's a lot. But also, hearing people and acknowledging that the world has changed. The world has changed since the pandemic. As a person that has friends or colleagues with young children, childcare isn't the same. That there are real challenges and hurdles that people have to face as they navigate this transition. And being able to, empathy is what, my number three. So for me, being empathetic to understanding that, navigating those challenges. But also, Nicole mentioned our leaders and starting at the top. And I think one of the things that we talk about over and over and over again with Gallup and other leaders is communication is the key. Like, you need to over communicate this stuff when change happens. Communicate, and what is it when you think you've communicated it enough? Communicate again,
Yet again.
and be flexible where you can. I'm lucky enough to have a leader that is as flexible as she can be where it's appropriate. So I know a lot of
Yeah.
us are grateful for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Michelle and Nicole, can you also speak to the benefits? So I worked remotely, fully remote in Denver for 3 years. Now I'm back in Omaha in a hybrid working environment. So maybe similar to you, I'm also experiencing, the transition and the benefits and the challenges. What have you noticed as far as the benefits or what you've been enjoying since returning to a hybrid working environment? And I ask that because I've met some of your Q10s and they're great people. I'm sure it's fun, just the hallway conversations and whatever it is, but please elaborate on what you've been enjoying since you've transitioned back.
Sure. So I think one of the best key benefits that we've had, obviously, no pun intended, is the in-person collaboration. And I think, I just want to acknowledge, Justin, as we were going through our return to office efforts, and I'm saying, help, help, guide us. What are best practices? I was trying to be mindful and empathetic to you because yes, you were going through the same change in your personal life. And I wanted to make sure, this is where my strategic came in. We were doing it creatively, innovatively, and doing it in a way that was a benefit to people, to employees, to, the organization, as well as just the community at whole. And so, being able to collaborate, having people just walk over from another division that's across from us, or walking through my team and just stopping by to say hi. Where over the course of the last couple of years, I'd look at teams. Is somebody green? Can I catch 15 minutes with you on a meeting invite? Um, we'd have group conversations where some of us would just huddle on Teams for an hour, lunch and learn sessions and just talk. How's everybody doing? So, the best thing for me, I think, being back in the office is my team is in Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and I have a rule that on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, I'm not on email. I maybe respond to maybe 5 a day at max, but I'm there to be front and center with my team, help with the organization where I need to, and get out in the community with our other state departments and collaborate.
That is a best practice, Nicole. Being visible if we're on site, to your point, right? I think you nailed it in that if we're on Teams or Zoom all day, you're not experiencing the benefits. But for a leader like yourself to prioritize being present, having those meaningful conversations that aren't scripted or scheduled, right? But to float around and just meet people where they're at, I think is incredible. And it'll be interesting to see how that impacts engagement over time. I'm curious going forward, how do we continue measuring success? Michelle, I know you're in the weeds with Gallup access and every Q12 question right off the tip of your memory, but I'm curious, how do we continue measuring success going into maybe next October? We don't have to wait, right, for the next survey administration. What are you looking for in the coming months to get a sense of engagement within the department?
I mean, it's a good question, Justin. I'm trying to action plan right now. And one of the things that we decided as an organization is to build a culture of alignment is we are focused on one question. So every single people leader is focused on Q6, which is about development. And it's funny because some folks have reached out and for help, and one of the questions they have are, one of the questions is, well, I got a really high score on development. Should I focus on something else? And it's like, yeah, you can focus on something else as well as Q6 development, because if you're doing this well, how do we continue to do it well? You're focused on development, but how is that question? See, I know them all, Justin. How is that question 11 of, someone has talked to me about my progress in the last 6 months? Let's make sure both of those are high. Your Q6 is high about development, Q11 is high, but let's look at Q9. My colleagues or teammates are committed to doing quality work. So really, how do we development? And Nicole did this yesterday, I think, in a meeting. You did this yesterday where you can use what did you use? Some of the resources.
Question one.
Yeah, some of the resources from Gallup Access.
Yeah.
And what did you do? You took some of the resources in Gallup Access to do an activity in your managers meeting.
Yes, there was an article that just came out the other day around sharing information with your team at the end of the week. It's like wrap up, communicate what we've done well, what is our focus for next week. So I took that article, took the downloadable resource on Q1, know what's expected of me, and I put my management team in breakout rooms. This took all of 10 minutes, maybe. I gave them 5 minutes. Tell me some best practices on how you have meaningful conversations and collaborate one-on-ones with your team members. Tell me some best practices on how you facilitate team meetings. We have new people in CalHR on my leadership team, so it was an opportunity for them to come together in small groups, get best practices, and then report out back in our team meeting. And it was so impactful to hear the person reporting out saying, and such said they did this, and somebody said they did this, and it was like a lot of aha moments. But we're pulling it all together to make a resource document that they can refer to But in that moment, it was so impactful to see there's so many resources that Gallup has available that in a 5-10 minute, I have extra time in a meeting that I can put something together. And just to add on a little bit to what Michelle said, this is my self-assurance. It comes out when I'm talking. I talk a lot, and I'm okay with that. Is how we got to Q6 was as an executive team, we were really focused on consistency, really focused on alignment through the work we're doing around culture. Is have something at our core that's meaningful and impactful to us in the organization. And we've heard, people want to develop, they want to promote, they want mentorships, they want to grow and learn more cross collaboration. And so we felt that Q6 was the right one for us to focus on. And so bringing that focus in and just building action plans, a lot of communication with the executive team, and then back in my team, it's making use of the time that you already have. So as we have all staff meetings, giving them a space to come together as a team and just spend time talking action planning, but not making it another meeting that you have to put on the books. So using the time that you already have scheduled. Yeah.
That's great. One thing I'd love to touch on is the importance of the manager. And Nicole,
Sure.
you mentioned this a few minutes ago. 70% of the variance in team engagement is directly attributed to the manager, right? So I think as leaders, it's important. We have to acknowledge their importance, right, and the influence they have within our organizations. For a first-time employee engagement client, right? If I'm a leader that's focusing on this for the first time, is it easy to get managers on board? Is it difficult? What do we need to do to set them up for success? I'm curious from you both to learn a little bit about, if I know it's important, what should I do next? Do you mind elaborating on that?
Sure. Thank you for bringing this front and center because I do really think it's important. We know 70% of the variance is on managers, that impact that they have. One thing that we're doing in CalHR is we have a leadership now forum. So this is a space where our supervisors, managers, people leaders can come together monthly for an hour and a half and hear certain topics, have conversations, develop, hear what's going on in the organization. So we're really consistent with having people show up and having a topic of the month there. One of the other things you asked, what is the first thing and the most important thing you can do? It's communicate and make sure that you're communicating to everyone. You're communicating in different ways. We know people take things in differently, email, verbal. I need to repeat it back. But having that broad communication and spending time with the people leaders and leaders in general is where the core is at. Setting them up for success. One of the things we recently did is we just ordered the It's the Manager book. It'll be here in 5 to 7 days. I can't wait. We're going to gift it out to all of our people leaders in CalHR. And then, maybe from there, it'll spark some book clubs. It'll spark some thoughts and some outside cross collaboration. We'll be looking to do strengths soon. So there's a lot of things that you can do, but the best thing to do, as Michelle says, is the worst thing you could do is do nothing. So the best thing you can do is make it intentional and talk to your leaders. Leaders need to talk to your leaders.
I love that, Nicole. Progress over perfection, right? It doesn't have to be perfect right away, but we have to do something. Michelle, what would you add to that? How do you make sense of how to best support managers, especially in a year one type environment?
Something that's coming up for me just over the course of this conversation is, you know, you all have done a lot of research on this, so you're the experts here. But I think, you know, there are so many meaningful conversations happening when we talk about survey results, when we, potentially host book clubs about It's the Manager. I see it behind you, Nicole. The book, right? Having
Mhm.
those meaningful conversations in an authentic, organic way, right? And for me, that's one of the cool things about being back in the office is there are people that I would never talk to because the work that I do doesn't have anything to do with the Affordable Care Act, right? But I see them in the office when I walk by and say good morning and know each of their names. So um, it's one of those things where being able to connect with folks and have meaningful conversations across difference across the different work that we do and being able to connect. So really incorporating those meaningful conversations. And it sounds like that's sort of what happened yesterday in your meeting, Nicole, of like with your management, with your leaders, of you pulled some stuff around Q1, but what really happened is you had a really meaningful conversation about the way people do things and the way they do them differently in those aha moments.
Yeah. I'm always looking for opportunity to how we can better support our leaders.
Meaningful conversations are so important, right? We found that to be a manager's most important habit, right? Is having one meaningful conversation with each employee every week. And I'm curious, Nicole, you're a certified strengths coach. One of the characteristics we found of meaningful conversations is for them to be strengths-based. I'm wondering whether you're on the receiving end of a meaningful conversation or you're the leader maybe facilitating and guiding that meaningful conversation. How are you weaving in this strengths-based approach to those conversations?
Yeah, good question. I think that it's interesting because some of the leaders here, or some of the people just within CalHR, have their strengths. So those that have, we share, and those that don't, it's always as I'm approaching conversations, I'm like, I wonder what your top 5 are, and I'm like, if I knew, this would be a whole different conversation. But really, it's I use my strengths to kind of guide conversations. Individualization is really important to me when I'm having conversations. I'm always looking to learn more about someone, whether I'm in a meeting or whether I'm just having that water cooler or down the hall conversation. I'm intrigued by people. It's like, what makes you happy? What's going well for you? Where are your challenges? And so I'm the one that gets in the elevator and it's dead quiet. And I'm like, good morning. How's everybody's Friday? Always looking to learn more. But then taking that individualization, and as I'm giving things out or asking, hey, can you help me with this? Or hey, do you want to be part of this team? It's looking to give people projects or tasks or collaboration to the things that they do well. So if I identify, so, engagement, Michelle really does have the opportunity to do her best work every day. I would never take this away from her. I give her more that I know she's interested in, and that helps, her feel her opinions count, that she's respected, and that she's valued as an employee. And Michelle has a couple counterparts that lead our EAP program, our merit program, and then Michelle has a leader of the team, and they all collaborate very well around statewide engagement and supporting our departments. And I always tell them, the work you do allows me to be in settings like this, even today, to talk about it, because they do the best work and they're really thriving at what they do.
Michelle, have you noticed any differences in the conversation folks in the benefits division have had since participating in strengths-based learning? What's felt different or what's looked different since maybe introducing strengths?
Yeah, I've noticed a bit. I think one of the other important conversations to have when we talk about strengths, and you all say it best, is like the balconies and basements piece, right? When we overutilize certain strengths, I know I'm going to speak for myself, but like for me, when the return to office happened, when that came out in October, and we engaged with you all in terms of the culture study, empathy is really high for me, right? So hearing challenges that people might be having, I absorb that. That's just, I absorbed a lot of it. But Relator is also in my top 10. So to think about having those, for me, those one-to-one interactions, and to connect with folks, that sort of, I had to lean into that because I wasn't using it as much, to, I want to make sure I wasn't overutilizing that empathy piece. But even the way that we talk to each other, I think about my team, particularly, the way that we talk to one another and knowing each other's strengths, I know helps us collaborate in a more meaningful way. And how do we pull what's best out of one another, and knowing our strengths.
What would you add, Nicole?
Yeah.
I see you smiling. I know you're an expert certified coach.
The reason I'm smiling is because as empathy is really high for Michelle, it's really low for me. And prior to doing my strengths, I think that's an area that was challenging for me, is how to connect with people who have high empathy. And really that's where, I get to use the individualization and learn more, but it's helped me to recognize that that was a challenge for me in a space that I needed to grow in a little bit more. And so doing some research on what does empathy look like, where do I see it in practice, how to conversate with people who have high empathy. Michelle and I do great collaboration together. And really why I partner with Michelle is because in an organization, statewide or regardless of who you're talking to, people want to hear from people that are like them, right? I'm a leader. Sometimes when I talk to people, there is a notion of, oh, we're doing this because we have to, or because the manager's telling me. But bringing Michelle along with me and letting her bring theory to practice and talk about the impact from an employee standpoint, that has really been key and beneficial to all of the work that we are doing across CalHR, across the state of California, and in our division. It's having that opportunity to hear from somebody that you can relate to is very impactful as well.
Absolutely. The CalHR, the Department of Human Resources, is that like advising thought partner within the state of California, right? For all things just workplace. And what I love about the intentional effort you've made up to this point is you're taking care of us so that we can go take care of everyone else, and to create a workplace that is strengths based, that's engagement focused, right? I think you are and you will set a best practice example for what agencies throughout California can aspire to, which is great. I know you also have big ideas, right? You have big goals as it relates to where we're going to take this. What should we look forward to in the future, right? Well, what's the impact you want to make on CalHR? What's the broader impact you'd like to make on the state of California and your hundreds of thousands of employees?
Oh, that is a great question. So for state of California, I want to see engagement be a natural, more forefront employee benefit,
Mm.
right? It's making the impact, making the intent, bringing it front and center. How do we weave it into the day to day things that we do and really not say, oh, and I have to do engagement, but making it, as you say, meaningful conversations, making it part of our daily practice. And so, things that we're looking to do in the future. And when I say future, we work on a fiscal year, so we're winding down our fiscal year now in the next fiscal year that'll start in July. We have Boss to Coach coming. That I think is going to bring so much value to the state of California to help our leaders just know how to transform in this new hybrid operation from being a manager to being more of a coach. What does that mean? I think that as Michelle defined what engagement means to her, everybody has a different scenario of what a meaning is. And so Boston Coach is going to help the state of California bring some consistency, some best practice, and just support. Support our leaders because we know they have 70% of the impact variance, right? And so you have to engage them, leaders, so that they can go and do their best work. So that's future for state of California. Future for CalHR, it's continuing the conversations and making CalHR a great place to work. We used our first Q12 survey as a benchmark. So
Mm.
it was, how are people feeling right now? CalHR had done some surveys in the past prior to the pandemic. And so we had a gap in where we were collecting data and input from our employees. And so partnering with Gallup, we were able to say, let's reset. Let's collect some information. Let's analyze it. Let's action plan and set some goals. And then when we take our next survey in the fall, then we'll be able to see, okay, now here's what the culture is like at CalHR. We're also working on updating our strategic plan. So how do we bring in the mission and the values of what we are doing best in our survey, or where we need to focus and streamline and set some goals? How do we bring that into our strategic plan here in CalHR so that it's consistent moving forward? Leverage our engagement champions. I want to promote them more. I want to spend more time with them because alongside the executive team, they are the true partners that can help coach our different areas. We have about 15 different divisions that do 15 different things or 100 different things. But how do we just have support for the leaders? And I know I keep saying focus on the leaders, but really that's what we need to do is focus on the leaders. Um, in our division here within CalHR benefits, my goal is to have my team cross collaborate a little bit more. We do 28 different programs. Some of them are siloed. You know, I want to bring people to a space where we're doing strengths-based. We're having those water cooler conversations as we are. We're sitting together and just saying, how is your day? How are you doing? One of the things we did is within the statewide engagement program, our core approach is around the 5 elements of well-being. So how are we supporting your career, your social? How are we giving you back time? And how are we bringing in the work that we do to serve Californians? How is that impacting the community? Right. And so physical well-being, social well-being, one of the things I learned through all of this is our EAP program has financial support. One of our partners next door is Savings Plus Division, where invests in our 401k for the state of California. We have things at our fingertips that we can share broadly. And so messaging that through the 5 elements of well-being has started and is going well. And I want Michelle, if you wouldn't mind, talk about Public Service Recognition Week that's coming.
Oh, no pressure. No, so public so Public Service Recognition Week, I think we've been celebrating for quite some time. But it's we don't set the dates. This is something that happens at a federal level, where I think this year it's May 5th through May 11th.
Yes.
And what we did is we push out ideas. They're not mandatory for departments to use, but so Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, each of those days is focused on the 5 elements of well-being. So career, we have career, social, physical, financial, and then community well-being. And we have reflection questions for each of those days for departments to maybe utilize. We didn't put this out there, but each of those reflection questions is actually tied to Gallup's Q12. That we want our hopefully departments and leaders to use. We also, we have ideas for more community building activities for departments to utilize throughout those 5 days, as well as, focusing on well-being. There's an employee assistance program webinar that we've advertised for each of those 5 days, because well-being and mental health are critical and super important, but we know that our analytics around engagement, like for me as an employee engagement program manager, I'm not the expert when it comes to mental health, right? So we want to make sure that our employees are getting access to those resources. So although well-being and mental health and engagement are critically intertwined, we want to make sure that folks have the resources they need to take charge and control over their mental health. We know they're different, but they're critically intertwined, which is why the needle of engagement is threaded throughout those programs. So
Yes. Yeah.
Do you find that folks are having open conversations around these 5 elements of well-being like they might a Q12 conversation, or what does that look like at CalHR?
I would say yes.
Yeah, definitely. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I mean, I would say yes. It's like, hey, we're in a meeting. We're talking about physical well-being. You're on a treadmill. It looks like you're in the forest. You can't breathe. Well, good thing you're not leading this meeting, because, shout out to to folks on treadmills and meetings. No, but I think that we are, we're having conversations, and I've even seen on, within teams in our division, like accountability buddies for, about certain elements of well-being. Like, did I do this thing that I said I was going to do? It's not necessarily going to the gym, but even like, hey, I said I was going to, volunteer or do this community thing. And I want to share it with the people around me.
Yeah, so. Definitely.
Yeah, that's
you
something
see it too, Nicole?
Yeah, Nicole, I'm curious if you have anything to add there.
I do. I think that there's a lot of meaningful conversations going on, and what's impactful or what's insightful with that is, as we've been partnering with you, we've learned all these best practices, but a lot of things were happening organically, meaningful conversations, and they just didn't have a title. It's just bringing it all together and having that core guidance has been helpful. But seeing people in, whether it's our leadership now or our staff meetings or just in the hallways, you see people talking and collaborating. So definitely I see this in full flight in action.
Yeah. I noticed that myself. You're going to hear some competition achiever coming out here, but me and one of my Q10s at Gallup, we have a punishment if we do not do our physical well-being agreement of the week. So it's 3 workouts in a week. If we don't do it, we have to pay
Ah,
$20. If I eat
oh my
candy, I
gosh, I
have
love.
to pay 5. But I think it really at the end of the day, that's speaking to kind of this new experience folks are having in the workplace with much deeper relationships, right? Fully understanding someone's professional life, but also kind of weaving in the personal, which is very unique. I'm curious, Nicole, we're getting close here. What's top of mind for you as leaders in supporting the broader state of California? You'd both joked about me coming to Sacramento, and both times we're mandating return to office. Is that the number one priority across the state right now, or what else are you thinking about?
I will say the state is large, right? We have a lot of priorities from different areas. We in CalHR, we work under the direction of our government operations team and the governor's office. And so our priorities may be a little bit different than the California Department of Technology or DMV or our partners at CalPERS. But really for us, when it comes to the work around engagement and statewide engagement program, um, we're going to what comes top to mind is doing some road shows. We talked about doing a summit in the future where we have breakout sessions where we're bringing some best practices from Gallups and some key facilitators. We really like Rose, we really like Andy, and not to segue, but Justin and Jim, I really want to just say something that's done really well through this partnership is that everybody at Gallup is great. Justin, everybody you've connected us with has done meaningful work with us and is impactful, but they're genuine in their approach. They have a commitment to helping CalHR, and I think that's top of mind for me because the customer service is great, but we're not just another vendor, right? We're not just another account that you have, but the people that we've worked with have really helped us be able to be strategic and say, where do you all want to go in the future? This is now, this is the moment in time, but what's coming up? And just being available, I can call anybody, even if they were out for a summit or a facilitation. I have those networks and I can say, hey, Rose, do you have a minute? Hey, Andy, can I send you a chat? And they're very insightful and meaningful and just great to partner with. So thank you so much for that, Justin and Jim. And, Jim, I have to say I have a bucket list of things that I want to do in my life. And being on a podcast with Gallup is one of them. So thank you so
Yeah, you're very welcome. Listen, you came and shared on behalf of CalHR when during one of our sessions, our award sessions internally, and I was like, all right, we got to have them on. So thank you for being so willing to especially so early in the process. It's great to hear these stories from you, and yet these ideas that are yet to come. Michelle, I would think as we were talking, you're in a spot to be able to influence, and we do this at Gallup all the time. We refer to these questions almost daily as we're working with each other to say, and maybe not, Q10 gets the best friend. We say, oh, you're my Q10, right, type of thing. But praise and recognition is a phrase that pops up all the time in our culture because we focus on it. You have to inspect what you expect, and I think sometimes we need to embed those phrases into the culture. Michelle, do you feel like that's a mission of yours to get these phrases embedded and people talk about them as a part of a regular conversation as opposed to, oh, it's Q12 time? I don't know, Michelle, what do you
Yes.
think? Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I think that all of these questions can become a huge part of our culture. And I think for me right now, in terms of action planning, I feel like there's a glare on my glasses. Sorry. In terms of action planning and meeting with leaders, this is an opportunity right now to hear what each question means to each team member. Like I think about, the Q10 question, and I know that there's a lot of research that went into that. And it sometimes you look at the results and a bunch of people all of a sudden didn't answer it because historically maybe it hasn't been appropriate to have a best friend at work. But that best friend for me at work is, who do you call when you're really excited to share something? Who do you trust when you're having when you're having a day and you just need to vent? Who is that person? Who do you go to? Who do you love having meetings with because you love working with them? Because you really do great work together. And it's funny, I was meeting with someone recently and I explained Q10 is it's not necessarily just the person you want to hang out with every Saturday. And you can't get enough of them, Monday through Friday. It's that person that you can trust and you can go to, and what's said in that space is going to stay in that space.
Mhm.
And I think embedding these questions, we've seen recognition recently of somebody, one of our people leaders looked at the survey again and asked their team a question, and then emailed another division thanking them for the hard work that they've done and how they've made a difference. And that's how you build a culture of engagement. So
Yes.
embedding those questions, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nicole, you're smiling a lot. You want to
Yes.
add anything?
Yes,
to
I
that?
do. It's interesting. We were talking about best friend and at work, and Michelle, we noticed that we've had a little bit of resistance around this question. Some of our leaders believe you don't need a best friend at work to, it's not important. And so one of the things we did is focusing on it is, okay, think of it not as a best friend, but who is that confident when something happens? Who's that person that everybody has a person when something happens, they reach out to, you know? Michelle and I recently listened to a little snippet from Simon Sinek around 8 seconds or 8 minutes. And it's, do you have 8 minutes? And when you send that message to somebody, it's saying, I need you, I need to talk. And so if you look at it and summarize it, that really is your Q10.
Justin, we are short on time. Why don't we take a second? Final thoughts from you, Justin, and then thank our guests for coming today.
Yeah, well, I think this has been an incredible conversation. And Jim, you pointed this out perfectly. We're still early in the process, but you're doing it with excellence. And I love that we've truly taken this progress over perfection approach, because the timing of things, transitioning back to an office hasn't been perfect, but you have remained just as dedicated to the work, and more importantly, the people that the work affects, right? So I just want to commend you both for your dedication to your people and the difference you're making, not only in their professional lives, but what that means for them in the personal, right? Because they get to go home, and we know that career well-being has just a huge effect on your overall well-being, and you're helping support that. So I just wanted to say thank you. You two are incredible. You pointed this out. You aren't another client, right? We have a great relationship, and I really am looking forward to what's to come. And Jim, thanks for having us. It's been a lot of fun to spend this hour with you today.
Oh, it's always great. Nicole, Michelle, thank you on my behalf. I'm glad that we could make this happen. Appreciate it. While I live in Nebraska, I was born and raised in San Jose, California. So I'm super excited that this is going on in the state of California, and we get opportunities to see this and happening. I get questions about state governments all the time, and so thank you for taking the time to be a part of this, so we can share this with them and say, hear a little bit about what the state of California, because I think sometimes there's this this wrong idea that you can't have engagement in state government or in government at all. No, it's too hard. And what I hear you guys saying is, yeah, it's hard, but we're going to get this done. And so excited. So for both of you, thanks for coming on as well. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
You're welcome.
It's been a pleasure.
With that, we'll remind everyone to take full advantage of all the resources we do have available inside Gallup Access that got mentioned during this. You can log in there, my.gallup.com, and check out those resources that are available for coaching, master coaching, or if you want to become a Gallup certified strengths coach like Nicole is, you can send us an email, coaching@gallup.com. We can talk to you about that as well. Again, that email address, coaching@gallup.com. Stay up to date on all our future webcasts and all the things that we do. You can follow us on Facebook or LinkedIn. Just search Clifton Strengths on any social platform and you'll find us there. For those who came out and joined us live, thank you for doing that. And you're getting some really great comments out there in the chat room as well. Monica, thanks for checking in. And we will see you back here for the next one. Thanks to everybody who came out live. If you're listening to the recording, thanks for doing that as well. With that, we'll say goodbye, everybody.